Super Q, los Miami Dolphins y tú rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Son los Dolphins, nuestros Miami Dolphins, el team número 1 en toda la nación. Y son ellos orgullo de Miami y de todos los latinos en la capital del sol. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Este año no me hablen de los Redskins, no me hablen de los Chargers, ni de los Dallas Cowboys, porque los Dolphins son número 1 y lo demostrarán al llegar al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Nuestra línea está mejor que nunca y nuestra defensiva fue siempre la mejor. Y es por eso que yo no tengo duda que los Miami Dolphins ganarán el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Universal Casualty y Super Q, los primeros. Bueno, caballeros, todo el mundo que cante con nosotros. Dame una D, dame una O, dame una L, dame una P, una H, una I, una N, una S, que es lo que tenemos, Miami Dolphins. Me voy para el Super Bowl. 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 Me voy para el Super Bowl.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team that's in our heart. awful tough. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins.
Hello, 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 Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphins Show, sponsored by BetUS, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
The Dolphins have gotten off of the mat after 3 straight losses, 4 straight games with backup QBs coming in. Tua Tagovailoa returns to the starting lineup, and the Miami Dolphins don't ride Tua to the 16-10 victory. They ride the defense, the secondary that was beat up, beat down, run down, falling apart at the seams. And the defense shows up, allows 10 points, and your Miami Dolphins get a big win on Sunday Night Football on the national stage, going to 4-3, and they have an opportunity now to get this season back on track after a few, let's just call them turbulent weeks following the injury to Tua Tagovailoa. So here come the Dolphins. And Brain, how you feeling right now?
Are we doing the pulse check right out the gate, or are we just saying generally?
Let's do it. Why are we going to waste some time? Let's just do it. Just jump right into it. Here we go.
Let me check your pulse if you're not fired up.
Right, Miami Dolphin fans, it is once again time for a pulse check. It's time for you to tell us how you are feeling about your Miami Dolphins in one word. We've got some feelers out there already in the chat, and we've got some comments coming in. They're coming in on Twitter as well. So make sure you're following us at Amplify to Rock, at Aaron the Brain, at Same Old Dolphins. Follow us, give us a tweet. Send us a message. If you're watching live on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel right now, go ahead and put it in the comments. If you're watching live on the I'm a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page, go ahead and put it in the comments. Let us know in one word, how do you feel about your Miami Dolphins right now following that 16-10 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football? Brain, here we go. You wanted the pulse check. Here it is. So talk to the people. Tell them how you're feeling.
So look, obviously, after losing 3 games in a row, it felt like you had to win. You're coming into this stretch of games now where, maybe we were lumping Minnesota in and the Jets into that stretch of teams that, the Dolphins were expected to beat, that are inferior teams. Maybe we lumped them in there unfairly. Maybe those teams are better than we thought they were. But we're 7 weeks into the season, and this stretch of games, Pittsburgh, who we just beat, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, Houston. These are bad football teams. These are teams that if you've got designs on making the playoffs, you've got to win, and the Dolphins are going to be expected to win these games. And if they can do that, they're going to put themselves in position to be right where they want to be coming down the home stretch, where they'll be in position to make the playoffs, and then it's going to be dependent on how they play at the end of the season. That said, look, obviously feel good about a win. A win is a win in this league. Look, you can look around the rest of the league. Like the Baltimore Ravens, they had to fight tooth and nail to beat the Cleveland Browns this week, but they won. The Los Angeles Chargers got their doors blown in by a Seattle Seahawks team that is not very good. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
How much longer you can say that Seahawks team isn't very good? I'm just saying.
Okay, well, at any rate, the Tampa Bay Bucks have a losing record. The Green Bay Packers have a losing record. Those are the 2 of the teams that were probably the most popular picks by the general consensus to come out of the NFC this year. Winning in this league is hard. So a win is a win, and you got to feel good about that. That said, there are things to be concerned about. The offense, as good as it looked at the beginning of that game, as soon as they got off script, they really struggled, and they were really lucky. I mean, as good as Tua looked early in this game, had at least 3 dropped interceptions by Steelers defenders, arguably 4 This could have been a really bad game and one that the Dolphins easily could have lost. And the Dolphins really let the Steelers hang around in this game, and it was much more stressful than it should have been. So there are definitely things that we can be concerned about, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But overall, like I said, a win is a win. I feel okay about it. So I'd say I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling
Her
all
in the
right.
brain, it's feeling all right. All right. I mean, all right. That's good. That's good. I like it. That's good. Let's take a look at some of the things some of the responses that we've gotten here in the chat. We've gotten some answers here. Keith H says frustrated. The great Carlos Hernandez says hungover. Jay Mueller says uneasy. And Golsky says concerned, and I think that's fair. And Jeff Harris says he's feeling hopeful. I think that's fair too. Let me take a look over here on the old Twitter machine and see what's coming through the message boards there. Jim Ryan says hope. The 305 pancake with a very multi-hyphenate here. Playoff bound as long as Tua stays healthy. That's all hyphenated. So it's technically one word. Russell Grace is optimistic. Tua Pak Shakur says mysterious. At Trustworks says gritty, which I like. At DG McDonald 69 says At Carter Grenier says confused. At Davis _ T94 says optimistic. And hey, how about this? Ernesto Fernandez says simply Tua. Oh, and then we've also got Diana Grandinetti says optimistic as well. And here's how I'm feeling, Brain. Because I agree with you. I agree with you that there are some things to be concerned about. There are some things that as I was watching the game on Sunday night, that I was getting upset about. And we'll get into what some of those things are. And I'm obviously a little bit worried about the depth on the defensive side of the ball and wondering how much longer this team can put together great defensive performances with a defense that's held together with silly putty, duct tape, and a toothpick. But at the moment, it's working. And so, Brain, how I am feeling right now, I'm feeling scrappy.
Ooh.
Feeling scrappy because that was a scrappy win from your Miami Dolphins. I think a lot of us wanted to see a big high-scoring game. We wanted to see the Dolphins light up the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people, we wanted to drop a 40 burger on Brian Flores. That's what we wanted to do. But listen, you don't do that really to a Mike Tomlin coach team, although the Bills dropped 38 points, but that just shows you there's a difference between the two teams, I think. But regardless, it was a nice scrappy win for the Miami Dolphins. So that's how I'm feeling right now. I am feeling scrappy, just like the Miami Dolphins. And listen, this was a game that absolutely wasn't without its fair share of talking points. But Brain, I think the first and foremost, what we got to talk about is this defense, because they did such a great job shutting down. And I don't care who you are. I don't care who you're playing against. If you're playing against Kenny Pickett and the Steelers, if you're playing against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, if you're playing against Sam Ellinger and the Indianapolis Colts, I don't care who you're playing. In the National Football League, when you're up against a National Football League opponent and you are as beat down as badly as the Dolphins were physically, for that defense to show up on third and fourth string cornerbacks, losing Brandon Jones late in the game, to have Clayton Fedgelum out there playing meaningful snaps at safety,
At linebacker, having of all people, Noah Igbenogany come up with the game-sealing interception. I don't care who you're up against. It's impossible to come away from that not feeling good. Okay? It's impossible. Now, listen, but here's the other thing, because there are some people, and I'm going to address, I'm going on a little rant here, if that's okay with you, Brent. Sure. I'm going to go full screen for a second. Okay, here I go. Go for it.
I'm going to talk to the people. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hi. Hello out there. I just want to point something out, because I feel like there are some people out there that don't understand this. And so I want to make myself very clear. When the Dolphins win an NFL football game, I am happy. I am pumped. I'm fired up. I'm in a great mood when the Dolphins win, right? I love that. All I want is for the Dolphins to win football games, right? When it comes to my sports fandom, I've been a very blessed sports fan in my lifetime. The Miami Dolphins are the only professional sports team that I cheer for that I have not seen win a championship in my lifetime. So I've been very blessed. And I am now ready for the Dolphins in my lifetime. Before I die, I want to see the Dolphins lift the Lombardi Trophy, okay? I want to make that very clear, okay, right at the beginning here. It's very important. Brain, do you understand that?
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. I'm glad you can understand that. Here's the thing. Just because the Dolphins win a football game does not mean that everything about the team is beyond reproach and that there is nothing to criticize. Okay? And just because I have something about the team and its performance that I'm criticizing does not mean that I don't love the team and want the team to succeed. Okay? These are not mutually exclusive things that we're talking about here. So I just want to make it clear to all these people out there in the world that when I send a tweet out into the universe that says Mike McDaniel has not done himself any favors tonight, a tweet that, by the way, was sent before the game was over, that does not mean that I'm not happy that the Dolphins ended up winning the game anyway. But the fact that the Dolphins won doesn't mean that the process that they used to get there wasn't questionable at some times. Right? Right? I think most of us can agree that the clock management on the final drive of the first half was terrible. And I say that as somebody who generally really likes the way that Mike McDaniel takes a deliberate approach to the 2-minute drill. And he's not rushing. His goal is to use the entire 2 minutes and get the touchdown. Now, this was a disaster. How you let Tua scramble, dive, go sliding into the ground, and then let 20 seconds run off the clock when you're still some distance away from the end zone, that's a problem. That's a mistake. How you get down into the red zone and you got 3rd and 3 and you run the ball not once, but twice up the middle where you've had minimal success in general and even less success when it's Chase Edmonds. That's something to criticize, especially when you leave 3 points out on the field in a 1-score game that would put you up by 2 scores. Yeah? So, listen, I'm thrilled. And this is the thing. I'm happy right now. The Dolphins won this game. And that's great. But that doesn't mean that there aren't underlying things that need to be addressed, that if they go unaddressed, could eventually down the line stop the Dolphins from being able to make it to where they want to go. Right? Because here's the thing. One of the things that people told me, Brain, one of the things that people said, and I'm going to exit out of full screen here because I think people are probably sick and tired of seeing my face that big on their screens. Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube. What's up? One of the things that people said was, well, when Tua comes back, this offense is going to score points. We're going to go back to scoring, right? We're going to finish drives. We're going to score touchdowns. And the reason that the Dolphins lost those games to Minnesota and the Jets was that Tua wasn't here to finish those drives. And that's when I say, okay, all right. So let's see if Tua comes back and the Dolphins suddenly put up a 40-burger. Guess what? Brain, do you know how many times the Miami Dolphins have scored more than 20 points this season?
More than 20 points?
Yes.
The Baltimore game. That's it. The Baltimore game.
That's it. One time.
Yeah.
Right?
I think we scored exactly 20 against New England.
Right. Yeah, you scored more than 20 one time.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
7 games.
And that was
sample size.
And that was thanks in part to one amazing quarter in which they actually scored 21 points.
28
points. You're right. So what I'm trying to say is We're 7 games into the season now, and the team has scored more than 20 points one time. That indicates that this is a team that has problems finishing drives with touchdowns. The majority of the games, 6 of 7 games, we have demonstrated that problem. And we were able to win the first 3 games in spite of that fact. We were able to win this last game in spite of that fact. Well, so the fact of the matter is, there are issues that need to be addressed for this team as we go forward. But at the end of the day, you'd much rather be addressing those issues when you're 4-3 and the next stretch of games has you taking on the Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears.
Didn't we score 21 against the Bills?
We scored 21 points against the Bills?
Yeah,
is that what it was?
I think it was 21-19.
Either way, whether they scored 20 or 21 points, the fact still stands, right? So there are things that this team can improve on. There are areas that they need to improve on if they want to be going up against tough competition and winning those important games late in the season. So what I'm saying is it's okay to be happy that the team won and to also say there is room for improvement. And it's okay to say that there is room for improvement and still be happy that the team won. That's all. That's all. So all of you with your responses to my Mike McDaniel tweet about derp, 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 still got the dub, derp, 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 we still won, derp, 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 look at you, narrow-minded Finns fan, derp, derp, derp. You guys gotta pump the brakes.
This is incredible. Josh is finally getting the Twitter heat that I've been getting for years for
I'm just saying.
for just being realistic. Oh man.
That's all.
You're so negative, bro.
Who's
Why
negative?
so negative, man. We won the game.
Bro, that's why people say the Dolphins have the worst fans. Bro,
what is that? What is that voice? What is that?
That's why everybody says the Dolphins have the worst fans, because the narrow-headed knuckleheads like you who want to talk crap about the head coach and the quarterback even when they win.
Is that the New Yorker? Is that the New York fan?
That is random Twitter nobody with no avatar coming at me in response to a tweet criticizing the team. The audacity of a fan of a football team to demand better performance even in a win.
Oh, God. Josh, you are fired up.
I am fired up. I'm fired up. I got no patience. I got no patience for these idiots. All right? I am a kind and gentle man. I spent all weekend at home with my kids, my sick kids. My son is puking up hot dogs. My daughter has got snot dripping down her face. And my wife is in Ohio hanging out with her friends playing board games till 3 a.m. And that's fine because she deserves it. But you know what? I've been home alone with the kids all weekend. So then I'm going to have some knucklehead come after me on Twitter and saying I'm not a real fan because I got criticisms of the team when they won a game. It's taking everything I got not to swear on this show tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
I feel you. I mean, look, I've been dealing with that all season. And you're right. There are legitimate things to be concerned about. The offense in general, 7 weeks into the season, Tua's play. Look. He was not perfect last night. Brent.
Am
I thrilled that Tua was out there and that, I mean, was I thrilled to see him like lowering his head, trying to like run over linebackers and defensive back? No, I wasn't happy to see that, but it was good to see him get hit and bounce back up and be healthy. That was good to see. It was great to see the way this offense was designed to be run beautifully in the first quarter. The way on that first drive and really on the second drive all the way up until we fell short. And even on that second drive, I mean, he hits Raheem Mostert and Minkah Fitzpatrick just levels him and just has like a great hit to break up what would have been a completion that set up a 1st and goal at the 1 yard line. And the Dolphins probably walk right into the end zone. I loved what I saw there. The problem is that after that, Tua really wasn't. He was very inconsistent. He made some good passes. He made a lot of questionable decisions. Some passes were off the mark. He got away, like I said, with probably 3 or 4 dropped interceptions, and this game looks completely different if that doesn't happen. And look, this isn't the first time that Tua had a stretch of 3 really good games. Do I see improvement in Tua? Do I see an offense that is clearly much better suited and has much more talent and an offensive play design that, makes sense and is a 21st century offense and has all the makings of this thing really, being a good situation for Tua and the offense down the road? Yeah, I see that. But I also see the same player that the last 2 seasons we've talked about. Tua has this great knack of playing extremely well when everything is scripted on the opening drives of halves. And then as the game progresses, all of a sudden it's not so easy. When the defense adjusts, he's all of a sudden he's making mistakes. He's making those throws that make you scratch your head. All I'm saying about Tua's performance, good to see him out there. Great that he's healthy. Clearly the best quarterback on the roster, and clearly the team is better for having Tua, but it's still a conversation. It's not like 3 games of really good play from Tua means we found ourselves our franchise quarterback. Look, Ryan Tannehill had multiple games in a row where he was really good and people were ready to buy in. Tua's had games in the past where he's been really good and people are ready to buy in. This is a long season. We're not quite halfway there yet. Tua still has a long way to go to prove, one, that he's worthy of even the 5th-year option, let alone whether he's our franchise quarterback for the long haul. I will say this, though. The getting Teron Armstead back and you get Raheem Mostert running the outside zone behind Teron Armstead, and you see the linebackers have to creep up. You see the safeties having to play back because they respect Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and you get a bunch of space in the middle of the field. The offense being exactly what it was designed to be. That's exciting to see. And there's a lot to be excited about there. So I think there's some good, some bad on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, like you win a game where your defense gives up 10 points and you got Ben Stilley playing because Emmanuel Ogbah is out. Raekwon Davis gets banged up, so you're getting a lot more, John Jenkins playing in there. You already talked about you got Clayton Fejedelem. You've got Justin Bethel, who was brought in just to be a special teams gunner, was never supposed to be on the field playing a defensive snap. Noah Igbenogany, who couldn't get defensive snaps over an undrafted free agent in Kader Kohu, is getting significant playing time on the outside, and we only gave up 10 points. Like, the team played their asses off. The defense played their asses off, and those guys deserve a lot of credit because there aren't a lot of teams that could lose the number of players that the Dolphins have lost in their secondary and only be able. Now, granted, it helps when you're playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh sucks. Let's be real. But still, you're still playing an NFL team with starting receivers, a starting quarterback, I guess. And
they have a person whose job it is to throw the ball.
But also, I'd be remiss if I said I wasn't concerned now. Brandon Jones got hurt, came off, couldn't put any weight on his knee. It looked really ugly. We don't know definitively yet how long he's going to be out, but we do know he's going on IR. So he's going to miss at least the next 4 weeks.
It doesn't sound good.
It doesn't sound good. And you hope that it's only those 4 weeks, but it really doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like Byron Jones is expected to come back anytime soon. So you're running out of players back there. And eventually it's going to come back to bite you. You just hope, can the defense hold the fort a little bit longer, get a little bit healthier, and then the offense will need to play better. Am I happy that they won? Absolutely, I'm happy they won. Is a win a win, and is it still big and a step in the right direction? Absolutely. But for the Dolphins to get where they're going to need to be, or where they want to be at the end of the season, where we all want them to be, which is in the playoffs, they're going to need to play better on the offensive side of the football. Tua's going to need to be better. We're going to need to be able to, we're going to have to rely on our running game a little bit more. And let me finish by saying this. We have a starting running back, and his name is Raheem Mostert.
That's right.
And this should not be a running back by committee. Now, am I saying Raheem Mostert should get 30 touches and like no other running back should be put in the game? No, I'm not saying that. But Raheem Mostert is big enough, a physical enough runner that he could carry the load and get 18 to 20 touches a game. I think you can probably give this guy 20 to 25 touches a game. We don't need to see Chase Edmonds taking carries away from Raheem Mostert, especially when Mostert is getting the team down inside the opposing 30-yard line, and then you're taking him out. It is not a coincidence that the offense stalls inside the 30-yard line at the same time that you're taking out your best running back and putting in your backup running back in the most important part of the field.
Yeah, that's
it's
the
just
ridiculous.
not a good formula. That's got to change. And frankly, I'm at the point now, since Chase Edmonds, who's supposed to be this great pass catching back, has hands of stone. I think Myles Gaskin is about to jump him on the roster, on the depth chart. I'm ready to make that move. But that said, this is Raheem Mostert's backfield as long as he's healthy. And he's obviously been healthy, and he's carrying the load. The last couple of games, he's 5 yards per carry. Like, you want this team to be able to run the football consistently. You want this to be a run, you want that to be the identity of this football team. Well, then you stick with the one guy in your backfield that has shown that he can be successful, and that's Raheem Mostert. Stop taking him out of the game inside the 30-yard line.
Nonsense. We don't need Chase Edmonds. If you want to give the ball to Chase Edmonds, you give Raheem Mostert a blow in the middle of the drive, and maybe give him a carry or two. But I especially down inside the red zone. What are we doing? What are we doing, Mike McDaniel? Come on. You be better than this. You're better than this.
Speaking of, you want to talk about the fourth down? I mean, you talked about it. Like the decision there in a game where clearly points are at a premium. I mean, the play call itself is bad. But in general, that's a situation in the game. And I get it. Like, I get that you want to be aggressive, and Mike McDaniel's been lauded for being aggressive and going for it on fourth down. And statistically, it's kind of a 50-50 proposition there. But I don't care. Like, you're ahead in the football game, and you've got a chance to make it a 2-score game against a team that really struggles on offense. You got to take the points. Are you happy to take the field goal there? No, you're not. But 3-point, you had to come out with something there, because if the Steelers score on one of those last 2 drives and the Dolphins lose this game, we're literally looking at that decision to go for it and saying that decision may at the end of the season be the reason why we're not a playoff team.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was, to tell you the truth, I don't hate the idea of going for it there. Although, I mean, on a 4th and 3 down there, after that run play on third down doesn't get you anywhere. And I get that he didn't want to make a substitution because he didn't want to give the defense an opportunity to make a substitution. I get all of that. But to go for it on a 4th and 3 and with that particular play call was really, really rough. I like the aggressiveness most of the time, and I appreciate the analytics of it say that, most of the time that's a good decision. But in this case, it really wasn't even a great decision from an analytics standpoint, because I think it gave you going for it and getting it there gives you the numbers
1%,
gives you like a 1% better chance of winning the game. So like at that point, kick the field goal and go up 2 scores and, live to make that decision another time is my thought. But
and if you're going to go for it, put the ball into his hands. If you got if you've got 3 or more yards to go, like we're not at the point with this running game where we can say 4th and 3. Yeah, we're running the football.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not at that point yet where we're definitely getting those 3 yards every single time, and that's definitely going to happen. We're not there yet.
I don't think we're at the point where we feel good about getting that 20% of the time.
But I like the idea of putting the ball in the quarterback's hands, and as we saw in this game, Tua's not afraid to run the ball, and we finally saw him doing a little bit of scrambling in this game. Now, I think there's an interesting conversation about whether Tua should be, running into guys the way he did on that one play. And all I'm going to say is we wouldn't be having this conversation if Tua had a body like Josh Allen, right? Tua's a big guy like Josh Allen. Nobody thinks twice.
I'll go one step further. We wouldn't be having this conversation if he wasn't stretchered off the field the last game he played, because nobody was saying anything about Tua giving up his body when he was running over a Jets defensive back last season.
Right. So to me, it's, you love the competitive spirit. You want the guy to take care of himself. Quite frankly, I thought he did everything in his power to take care of himself on that play. He hit the guy with his shoulder, and that's what he did. It's not like he
lowered his head. That's always scary.
I mean, whatever. I think it's fine. I'm not too terribly worried about it.
Well, he said himself after the game that he can't do that.
Yeah. Well, and that just tells you the kind of competitor that he is, which you like that, but you also don't like the guy who's such a competitor that he makes stupid decisions for his own safety.
Save it. Look, we don't need it in the second quarter of a week 7 game against the Steelers.
Right. So
save that for the end of the season, big game, huge moment, you need a first down. That's when you can give up your body. Otherwise, live to play another down, throw the ball away, slide, like do what you got to do, because at the end of the day, we've seen, like, obviously Skylar Thompson, had some flashes, but for this team to get where it's going to want to be, we're going to need Tua out there. So we don't need Tua getting hurt trying to, run somebody over 3 yards short of the sticks in the second quarter of a week 7 game.
Right. So hopefully he'll continue to be smarter. Hopefully he'll play better and he'll start putting the ball back. Like, that was the thing that was alarming. Not alarming, but I guess a little bit concerning to me in this game was that his accuracy was certainly off. He was missing throws that Tua doesn't miss. And so that was the kind of thing that made me go, okay, well, that's interesting. And then, of course, because, this is the Dolphins fan base, there were certain people coming out of the woodwork to say, see, Tua's no good. Tua's no good, because he looked like 2021 Tua for the second half of that game. That's the other thing that is a little
2021 Tua.
He did. That's fine. So what I want to see now is to see how he bounces back, because if we see that Tua for, large chunks of the season, that's, again, a little bit of an alarming trend.
If we're being honest, before he went down in the Cincinnati game, he had a really bad interception in that game.
Yeah, it's true.
And not a touchdown. So
let's see how things play out here. With Detroit coming up again. This is the soft part of the schedule coming up. So if there's a get right time, this is certainly the time. If you're gonna have it, if you're gonna be banged up, the time to be banged up is when you've got this stretch of games coming up here. Let's talk some more. Let's talk about these injuries, I guess. We should talk about the fact that Brandon Jones went out. We sort of mentioned it earlier. He's out now. He's going on IR. It sounds bad. It sounds like he had another injury when he was in college that I guess is complicating this injury as well. So it seems unlikely that we're going to see Brandon Jones again this season. Mike McDaniel was hesitant to say that he's out for the season, but he said it sounded like he wasn't terribly optimistic. Byron Jones they've said he's still not going to be back this week. At this point, I would say you're probably getting better odds at this point that he's not coming back this season than you are of actually seeing Byron Jones on the field at this point.
If he truly got the Achilles injury or the Achilles surgery, he got the surgery, whatever he did. We were told that it was like a cleanup surgery, but if this was like a full-blown Achilles repair that he got in March, then, I mean, you're talking like typically 8 months before you even resume football activities.
Right. You're looking at December at the earliest.
Yeah.
And at this point, if he's not back by, I mean, at some point, he's at the point where.
And what I'll say is this.
Go ahead.
If the Dolphins knew that, and they don't seem terribly surprised, like they put him on the PUP, they knew that this was going to be a while. And guys were getting hurt. And they haven't done anything. It's really like how bad does this team really want to win this year? And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, because at the end of the day, like, you know, is there aspiration to win the Super Bowl this year? You know, realistically, even though maybe there's a shot and maybe they should go for it, I don't think it's a good idea to necessarily mortgage the future for it. But, you know, some of the other moves that they've made, would tend to have you believe that this team is really going all in on this season. But I would say the way they've treated the cornerback room either shows just a supreme amount of confidence in a bunch of unproven players, or a general idea that, hey, we're spending too much money on the cornerback room as is. If Byron Jones comes back, great. If he doesn't, then we're just going to live and die with what we have. And if that means we're not a playoff team, then we're not a playoff team. So how do you feel about that?
How do I feel about that?
I guess we'll find out if they make a move. Like, are they gonna bring Joe Hayden out of retirement? Are they gonna, make the trade for the guy in Washington?
William Jackson, bring him.
Like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, and at this point, if we don't hear something in the next couple of days, I mean, it seems to me like they're going to stand pat. But man, it's it's certainly something that I'm worried about, because, like I said, it's not going to be a big issue right now. Although it could prove to be an issue against Detroit. Although we'll have to see if Amon-Ra St. Brown is active for this game on Sunday, with him being in the concussion protocol. But because they've got some weapons over there. That is an offense, when it's at full strength, that can be pretty dynamic. Although we've shown already that Josh Boyer, he may be able to get in there and get into Jared Goff's head a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that, sure, you can survive. You might be able to survive this stretch against Detroit and Chicago and Houston and Cleveland. But at the end of that, you're going to have to play Justin Herbert and Josh Allen.
Well, Justin Herbert's not scaring anybody at the moment, by the way.
That's fine. But, you're going to have to go up against Mike Williams and potentially Keenan Allen. And
you might not have to go up against Mike Williams.
Is he out now?
Well, he's got a high ankle sprain, so he's going to miss a bunch of time.
All right. But, you're going to have to go up against Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and you're going to have to go up against Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis again, and you're going to have to go up against Aaron Rodgers. Are you going to want to go up against those teams with Noah Igbenogany, Kader Kohu, and Justin Bethel?
Is Aaron Rodgers on ayahuasca when the Dolphins are going up against him?
I don't think it matters if you're going up again. And look, I love what Kader Kohu's done so far this season, and I really am impressed.
Really going to no-sell that question?
Yeah, I'm really going to no-sell that question.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But I'm really impressed with what Justin Bethel did. Noah Igbenogany. Look, the thing is, I'm not going to use this show to really dump on Noah Igbenogany, because this is the day to really praise Noah Igbenogany, because when all is said and done and his career is over, this probably is his career highlight.
All right. I mean, listen, to be perfectly fair to Noah Igbenogany, yes, he did have a handful of the classic Noah Igbenogany plays in this game. But he's also his overall performance is trending up based on where it's been. And to see any improvement at all from Noah Igbenogany is good.
Sure. But that's like saying the Detroit Lions, who were 0-16 one year and then won a couple games the next season, they were trending up.
To see Noah, here's the thing. We don't need Noah Igbenogany to be an all-pro cornerback. We need Noah Igbenogany to be a functional NFL defensive back. And what he's shown thus far is that is what he can do. And that's improvement enough. I think the ceiling on Igbenogany is obviously much lower than everybody had hoped for when he was drafted. But the fact that the floor seems to be higher than what we thought than what it has been over the past couple of years, the fact that the floor is raising, that in and of itself is a win in terms of Igbo. So I'm happy for Igbo. Give him the game ball. He got the game sealing interception. He's on the cover art for this episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show. Give the man some respect. Put some respect on Igbo's name. At least Igbo didn't come after me for tweeting about Mike McDaniel.
Did any Dolphins players come at you for that?
Derp. That's all I have to say about that. Moving on. I'm on to Detroit. Anything else about this game, Brain? I mean, we've been all over the place in discussing it. Nice to see Waddle get involved. Waddle's much more involved with Tua than he was with either of the backups. So that was nice to see.
Trent Sherfield.
Trent Sherfield is a player. Oh, that's it. Somebody asked about Cedric Wilson. And here's what I have to say about Cedric Wilson. Are we really surprised that a wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins wearing number 11 has just disappeared? I mean, that's all I have to say about
that. Last thing I'll say, obviously Cedric Wilson, they had some designs for him before they signed Tyreek Hill. And at this point now, he doesn't do enough of the little things that guys like Trent Sherfield and River Craycraft do to be the number 3 or number 4 receiver on this team. So the Cedric Wilson contract is a bad contract right now. I think you got to look for a trade partner. And I think at this point, you gotta see what you can get from Mike Gesicki, because let's face it, the guy's not going to be here next year, because you're not going to give him an extension. You're not going to franchise him again. So what are you losing? You're losing every now and then he's going to give you a touchdown in the red zone, or he's going to give you some big plays in garbage time. We're not using him. 3 catches for 27 yards. I mean, it's like Mike Gesicki on the season right now in 7 games has where is he? Bear with me here. He's got 18 catches for 197 yards in 7 games. So 197 divided by 7 is what? Like 30 yards a game? Not even 30 yards a game. 20 some odd yards a game. What are you scared of losing by trading him? Anything that you get for him is something that's going to be useful in the future. Now, if it's like a 5th round pick, you could make the argument, well, is a 5th round pick next year more useful than what he would bring to the table this season, I still would argue the 5th round pick is probably the better investment, because you could potentially get something of value that helps you long term with that pick. But I think more importantly, I think you shop Mike Gesicki and maybe you get a player. Maybe you get a player that is actually useful for this team.
I mean, you could certainly use a player in the defensive backfield, the offensive line. You know what I want to give a shout out to, speaking of the offensive line, Brain? Brandon Shell.
Okay.
Brandon Shell came in right tackle, filling in for Austin Jackson, who sounds like still not going to practice yet this week. So it's going to be next week or never for Austin Jackson. It sounds like Austin Jackson is raring to go, but they're trying to protect Austin Jackson from themselves. At least that's the story that they're saying publicly. But I thought Brandon Shell came in and did a very good job in that game last night against the Steelers. I thought you didn't notice him doing anything bad. And I thought there were a couple of times where I saw him making some incredible blocks, opening some space in the running game. Brandon Shell, definitely an improvement over Greg Little. And so I think that's that starting 5 on the offensive line right now: Armstead, Eichenberg, Williams, Hunt, and Shell. It's probably the best combination that we've put out this season, which is not saying a whole lot, but
it's definitely an improvement over Greg Little. And I think it's, you've got a swing tackle now. And now,
which is good.
You've got, between him and Greg Little, you got 2 guys that can play right tackle. And if Teron Armstead has to miss time, I think you probably go with Austin Jackson at left tackle before you go with either of those 2 guys. And you hope that Austin Jackson's made, some improvements in pass protection. But you certainly, I would feel better about Austin Jackson than Greg Little, at left tackle. But I'll say this: Austin Jackson is also, potentially really benefiting in the court of public opinion just by not being there. Because the vast majority of tape that Austin Jackson's put out over the past couple of years has really been not good. And so by him not being out there and then the backups playing poorly, somehow that's elevated this idea that Austin Jackson is actually a good player, when the reality is we all hope that he is. And there was a lot of talk about him making a leap this season. And I think there is potential there, but we really don't know how good Austin Jackson is. For all we know, Brandon Shell ends up being better than Austin Jackson.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's been around the block in the NFL before, Brandon Shell. So that's certainly a good thing in and of itself. And he's performing pretty well. So I'm happy about that development. And the other thing is, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it, is that Tua makes that offensive line look a lot better in general, because he gets rid of the ball.
Yeah.
He gets rid of that ball. He looks where he's going, and he can move around. He's got that shiftiness more so than, Skyler doesn't quite have the, he just doesn't quite have the feel for it yet. And Teddy, he's kind of like, what do you call those things? Like, that hold up a dock. Yeah. That hold up a dock, like going out in the water, just a big piece of wood. He's got a pelican sitting on his head.
He's just a big piece of wood. You don't need to say anything else. I don't care what they call it. Teddy Bridgewater. He's just a big piece of wood
with a pelican sitting right on him. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about. When you go down, to the ocean, right? You go down to the boardwalk. You got those big round wood things. You know what I mean?
Big round wood things.
You know what I'm talking about. But the pelicans, they sit right on them. What are those things called? Yeah, they have them on the pier.
Like a life preserver?
No, not a life preserver. That's not made of wood.
No, I don't know.
This is the best episode of this show we've ever done. What are they? A moor? Is that what they call that thing?
I have no idea.
All right. Well,
I think you should just call him a big piece of wood. I think.
Okay. Well, Teddy Bridgewater is a big piece of wood, is the thing that I'm trying to say. Okay. And so regardless, Tua makes that offensive line look a lot better, is what I was trying to say. And so like that, there are absolutely things to be optimistic about in terms of how the Dolphins looked with Tua versus how they had looked previously, with the backups and things in there. But regardless, there is still some room for improvement, which we've talked about, and we're going to talk about that later this week. I'm not sure yet, Brain, which day we're going to be back later this week, and you and I can talk about that off air. It'll either be, it probably won't be Thursday because your boy is going to New York City for work for a day. And
New York City,
baby. We're going to the Big Apple. Yes, sirree.
yeah.
So if anybody's going to be in New York City Thursday, want to join me for a quick drink around 7 p.m. before I got to head back to JFK, holler at your boy. Let's grab a drink. But yeah, we'll be back later this week to preview the Detroit Lions game because it's going to be a big one. Another opportunity for the Dolphins to take a big step forward. And quite frankly, at this point, when you look at the AFC, you look around the AFC, being 4-3, you're in a pretty good spot. There was a time where we thought maybe you were going to need to be 11-6 to make the playoffs. And when you look around in the AFC, you look around right now, it's early yet, but
at the end of the day, what it
but
looks
when
like,
you got to win these games, you got to win all these games if you want to make that playoff thing happen.
you got to be at least 7-4 going into the last 6 games.
Yes.
If you're 8-3, you've given yourself a little bit of leeway. And so you're going to play Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, and Houston. Like, there's no reason that you can't be 8-3.
That's right.
But be at least 7-4, and you've given yourself a real opportunity. At the end of the day, Buffalo and Kansas City are clearly the class of the AFC and probably the class of the entire league. And then after that, I think there's 6 to 8 teams that you can throw them in a hat right now and pick them out, and you've got as good a chance of picking who's going to make the playoffs as anybody else.
Yeah, so there you go. So it's all to play for as we go into this big stretch. But the key is, let's get right. Let's get healthy. Let's get better. Let's get sharp. Let's clean up the sloppiness. We cleaned up the penalties, which I was happy to see. We got the takeaways in this game, which I was happy to see. 3 interceptions, including, all the guys that got them, or young guys. Bethel maybe not as young, but Bethel make the interception. Javon Holland, Noah Igbenogany. You love to see it. And now you got a chance to get the offense right against Detroit, whose defense is, I believe my friends on Go Time Dolphins, Kadeem and Charlie, they like to say that the Detroit Lions are cheeks. Buns, not cheeks, buns.
Oh, both of those would apply to the.
You call them cheeks, I'll call them buns. Whatever the case is, I want the Dolphins dropping a 40 burger on the Lions. We'll preview that game later this week. In the meantime, make sure you visit manscaped.com. Use the promo code Dolphins Talk. Get yourself the best tools for the job, and the job is shaving your nether regions. So check it out at manscaped.com. Promo code Dolphins Talk, 20% discount, free shipping. And don't forget that you also can get all of the great liquid formulations, the cologne, the body wash, the shampoo, all the lotions, the lip balm. It's good stuff over there at manscaped.com. Make sure you go to trueclassic.com. Use the promo code Dolphins Talk. Save 25% on the best t-shirts in the game. My friends, do it. You will not regret it. I promise you. Trueclassic.com is the place to go. BetUS.com. Get the sign-on bonus with the promo code Dolphins Talk. 125% sign-on bonus. Hey, that's free money, folks. Go to BetUS.com. And Vincero Collective. Get yourself a nice fancy watch using the promo code Dolphins Talk as well. Vincero. That's Vincero. Vincero. That's going to wrap us up for this episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show. Brain, anything else you want to say to the people before we get out of here?
Look, this is the time of the season where at the end of, like I said, you just got to rack up wins. I don't care how you get there. Obviously, you got to play better to get where you need to be by the end of the season, but you got to rack up wins here in the soft part of the schedule. Get yourself to the end of the season. Get yourself at least 7-4, hopefully 8-3. And then when you get to that point in the season, you got to be playing your best football. And then if you're playing your best football at that point, you got a legitimate shot to not just be a playoff team, to make the playoffs and win a game. That is the goal for this season. Anything other than that, anything less than that is an unsuccessful season.
And I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Miami Dolphins are 4-3 and they have not yet played a full game of their best football. So that's got to make you feel good.
Yeah, they got to get better as the season. You got to play better.
Yes.
This was good enough to beat Pittsburgh, and that's all that matters. And next week, you just got to be good enough to beat Detroit. But at some point, you're going to have to be good enough to beat really good teams. So keep getting better, make progress. Please get healthy and don't lose any more key players. And we'll see how this thing goes.
Yeah, so we'll be back later this week to preview the Detroit Lions game. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, go Dolphins!
We about to put a 40 burger in them cheeks.